This is Tim from Strictly Ceilings. Today we'll evaluate the differences between vinyl ceiling systems and metal systems. If you're familiar with our videos, then you know that we are an independent suspended ceiling company on a professional level. Most of our work involves metal suspension grid systems, and you can learn more about us, including how to install a suspended ceiling, by going to our website at strictlyceilings.com. On a residential or commercial level, you will find almost all ceiling grid systems are metal-based grid systems. In fact, I've been in this business for over 20 years, and I am yet to see a government or industrial project that has been spec'd out for vinyl grid. There's a reason for this. Load capacity. Vinyl cannot carry loads anywhere near to that of metal grid. In many cases, grid not only needs to hold the weight of the tile, but other accessories like track lighting, can lighting, or brackets that span across the grid for weight distribution. In other cases, the grid may need to have a seismic requirement. If you are contemplating a vinyl grid system for your project, let me show you all the pros and cons of each system before you decide. Today we will do an actual installation of a vinyl grid and tile system. As a qualification, we have installed several vinyl ceiling systems in the past, so we are well familiar with the components and installation methods. We're going to install this system in a residential basement. The size of the room is approximately 14 by 14. Let's start by looking at the packaging. Vinyl grid comes in these handy lightweight boxes that are only 8 feet long. This is an advantage over metal grid, as metal components are in 12-foot long sections and quite expensive to ship. Another advantage of vinyl is that it's highly unlikely that vinyl grid and tile will get damaged during shipment. Conversely, it is more likely that metal grid and their fiber-based tiles will get damaged during their shipment. Let's look inside. As we open up the cartons, we find this pamphlet from the company comparing the vinyl grid to the metal grid. Let's take a look at it. According to this company, only the HG grid, which is the vinyl grid, is suitable for high humidity environments. This is an untrue statement. Standard metal systems have a galvanized main beam and can be used in wet locations, including industrial showers. If your application were high humidity, then I would recommend a metal grid with an aluminum cap on the face. The cost of this metal system is still less than half of that of a vinyl one. Next on the list is that the vinyl system doesn't show rust or scratches, but the metal does. I agree that metal can show scratches and will eventually rust in wet locations in about 10 years if you don't have an aluminum cap. But plastic will also show scratches, especially deep ones. I'll rate this line item as partially true. Next, both systems use any 2x2 or 2x4 tile. Agreed on both. I will also add that metal systems can handle larger than 2x4 and smaller than 1x1 panels for special applications. Take a look at this. The upper part of this metal floating ceiling is a 12 by 12 inch pattern. Pretty neat looking. The next line item is that the UV stable vinyl grid is easy to cut, but not the metal. They're grabbing for straws here. Folks, there's no need to have UV protection on a ceiling grid system that's installed in a basement. That is, unless you don't intend on having a roof on your building. As far as vinyl being easy to cut, I'll agree with that. Metal is just as easy unless you have a fire-rated system. Next, we see that the vinyl grid can be installed by one person, but the metal system cannot be. This line item is completely false. I personally have installed more than 4 million square feet of metal grid systems, and most of that footage was by myself. 8-foot sections are easy to get home. Agreed. Metal systems are a maximum of 12 foot long and at times difficult to transport in a passenger car. Next, we have ceiling tiles are removable. Both of them have that ability. Vinyl grid is easy to determine how many pieces to buy, but not the metal. Again, grabbing for straws here. It's no easier or harder to determine either one. In most metal systems, 1 box of mains, 2 boxes of 4-foot tees, 2 boxes of 2-foot tees, and 1 box of molding covers 1,000 square feet. Next, we see that the vinyl is available in different colors and finishes, but the metal is not. Another very dishonest statement here. Metal systems have not only more color options available to you, but also you can get them in a dozen different styles and forms. Check out this metal Piranha Grid system at half the cost of vinyl. Lastly, we see that only the vinyl cross tees are removable. I don't know who comes up with this stuff, but they obviously never installed a metal grid system. This is a lie, folks. Metal cross tees are easily removable. I have been removing them for over 20 years. I will say, however, that metal stab grid systems are more difficult to remove than metal hook systems. The vinyl grid that we are about to install is a hook system. Clearly, this company is hoping to sell its products to an uninformed and uneducated customer. That's why I'm here, to help level the playing field. Now that we have that out of the way, let's look at an overview of the vinyl grid. Vinyl grid systems only have a main runner and 2-foot tees. Metal systems have a main runner, 4-foot tees, and 2-foot tees. On top is the vinyl main runner that's 8 foot long. As stated previously, metal runners are 12 foot long. Below the vinyl runner is a metal 2-foot tee. Some differences are that the vinyl runner only has slots for tees every 2 foot, whereas the metal has slots every 6 inches on center. This is very important and will save you a lot of time when attaching your wires, as you will see in a minute. The vinyl runners are 2 inches tall. The metal are about 1.5 inches. The vinyl main runners have a plastic slide keeper that joins them together. The metal runners interlock together. Now, the 2-foot tees in the vinyl grid look like this and attach to the main runner by simply laying it in the enlarged slot like this. Another important note is that the wires to support the vinyl grid system must be installed every 2 lineal feet along the main runner where the tee connects and every 2 foot apart from main to main. With metal, you only install a wire every 4 lineal feet apart and 4 foot apart from the main. In other words, with vinyl, you'll be installing a lot of wires. This has to do with its inability to carry as much load as the metal. Vinyl grid cannot span a distance any longer than 2 foot without a wire. For every 4 wires hung in a vinyl system, you only need 1 wire for a metal system. This means 3 times as much labor for wire installation on vinyl. Let's move on to the installation. As with any sealing system, we recommend using a laser. Even more so with vinyl because of the sag potential in the main runner and the wall angle. The vinyl wall angle installation is identical to the metal angle. Simply place the angle on the wall and secure. One advantage to the vinyl angle is that it will conform to the imperfections in the wall without having to relieve it. One disadvantage, like we found out, is that this angle is only colored on 1/2 of the piece. We ended up having to tear one piece off the wall. Luckily, we had an extra. Now to the grid installation. We've installed our wall angle, our wires, and figured our layout by equalizing our borders. Now we're ready to install the grid. We cut the main to give us the proper border dimension and then installed the first and second mains. Once we temporarily tie up the 2 wires, we install our 2-foot tees. So far so good, but the grid feels flimsy and cheap. Once we get to the end of our first main, we cut and install the main just like we do for a metal system, but we make a mistake. There's slop in the main and we should have cut it tight to the wall. See how the main moves back and forth? The easy solution here is to just punch and rivet the main on each side of the slide keeper. We won't make that mistake again. On the second one, we cut it tight and slide the keeper over. With the metal grid, it simply snaps together and you'll hear an audible click. Finally, we finish installing our 2-foot tees down the first run of mains. A couple of things that we noticed when installing the first 2 mains. One, the grid was easy to install but had a very cheap and flimsy feeling to it. We had to be very careful with the grid not to knock any tees out of place. 2, mains cut into the wall have to be cut tight, which doesn't leave you any room for adjusting for square later. If you have to adjust for square, you'll need to rivet the main to the wall angle. 3, the wires didn't line up with the holes on the mains. This was not our fault. Our joists are 19 inches on center and the holes are 24 inches on center. The result was we had to punch holes in the main runner for our wires. We see that there was no possible way to have the holes in the mains line up with our joists, a clear flaw in the vinyl main runner. This would not have happened with metal, as there are more than enough holes punched in the grid. Let's move on. Before we begin cutting the tees to the wall, we string a line just like we do with a metal system. We start cutting in the wall tees with no unusual problems, other than that the tees are a little stubborn fitting together. We square up the tee, clamp it, line up the main, and punch and rivet the tee to the wall angle, just like we do with metal. A few things we noticed when cutting in the wall tees. 1, the tees were easy to cut. 2, the tees only go in one way. There's a raised groove on one side of the tee, and it's smooth on the other side. The 2 smooth sides must face each other. 3, it was not as easy to keep the main straight as there is no rigidity to the vinyl runner. 4, you must tie back the tee or rivet it. If we installed a rivet, we simply painted the head the same color as the grid. Finally, we finished the grid by installing the field grid. We do the same thing we did with the other 2 mains and install the main runner and 2-foot tees. The notable difference here was that the tees don't go in very easily. It took some effort to insert the tee into the main. Here is the actual install. You'll notice it finally locked in when you hear a click. Secondly, we notice that even with the tee locked in on both sides, it's still a very flimsy tee. Look at the flex of this T-bar, and the same thing for this main runner. When we've completed the grid, it looks like this. Let's finish this installation by installing the tile. The customer has chosen a vinyl tile to install in this ceiling. Vinyl tiles are inexpensive to ship and come in these small boxes. This particular vinyl tile is designed to look like a tin ceiling. Cost for vinyl tiles are between $2 and $3 a square foot. Ouch! You could purchase a high-end fiber-based tile that would have excellent performance acoustically for considerably less than the cost of this vinyl panel. You can see how thin these tiles are. There are actually 3 of them here. The backs are unpainted and, as you can see, very flexible. We first measure and cut our tiles just like we do with a fiber-based tile. Vinyl tiles are very easy to cut, and one advantage is that they're dust-free. We install a couple and realize we could probably cut several tiles at one time. Here we cut 7 tiles at one time, something you could never do with a fiber-based tile. The tiles go in quickly and easily, faster than any fiber tile. A couple of notes during the tile installation were: 1, definitely it was faster to install than any fiber-based commercial-grade tile. 2, it was completely dustless. But 3, there was no acoustical value to the tiles. The room sounded like we were in a cave. 4, we installed a ceiling fan into the room and all the tiles rattled in the ceiling. Well, here's the finished product. Definitely a nice look from 20 feet away. It has the look of an expensive ceiling at a moderate cost. I thought this installation was complete, but there's more. Because we couldn't install a ceiling fan, our customer wanted something else in this ceiling. A disco ball. And what does our customer think about it?
Very well pleased.
Thank you, Bill.
Primo.
So to sum up our comparison, here are the pros and cons of Vinyl Grid. The pros are it's lightweight. It won't corrode. It has a very low shipping cost. Vinyl tiles are fast and easy to install. It's a decent looking ceiling. And the vinyl tiles are dustless. The cons are it's flimsy and has a very cheap feeling to it. It has 3 times the amount of labor to install. It took us 3 hours for vinyl versus 45 minutes for a metal grid system. The ceiling required 3 times as many support wires. The grid is 300% more expensive at $1.60 a square foot. The layout is more complicated because there's not enough holes in the main runners. There's absolutely no sound absorption if using a vinyl tile. The grid cannot handle additional loads. And insulation above the ceiling cannot contact the tiles due to sagging. There's only one style offered. And lastly, vinyl tiles cost $1.50 to $3 a square foot versus fiber-based tiles cost 40 cents to $2 a square foot. For metal grid systems, the pros are it's very strong and can handle high loads. You only need 25% of the support wires. It's available in many colors and styles. You can insulate directly above the tiles. It has half of the labor and less complicated. It's very easily paintable. It has a less overall cost of 50 cents to $1 per square foot for the grid material. And the fiber-based tiles have acoustical value for privacy. The cons for metal are it's not cost-effective to ship it. And to achieve a real tin ceiling look would cost $6 per square foot versus $4 a square foot for vinyl. The cartons for fiber-based tiles are heavy. And lastly, fiber-based tiles are not dustless. So that about wraps it up for our vinyl versus metal grid comparison. What's our opinion? Go with the metal grid and don't believe everything that you read. Hands down, we believe metal wins in most cases. There are many more advantages to a metal grid system than vinyl, and the possibilities are endless. Be sure to check out our other videos at strictlyceilings.com, where you'll learn how professionals install suspended ceilings the right way the first time. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and as we always say here at Strictly Ceilings, we guarantee you'll look up to us.